Let's go to the Midwest. Jacob, if you want to kick us off here, anything about this side of the bracket intrigue you between, Illinois, Houston, West Virginia, or anything like that?
Well, the top NBA prospect is in this part of the bracket, and Cade Cunningham.
Okay.
I think we were looking at the bracket at work, and I was picking some teams, and that made sure to remind me, hey, Oklahoma State has that guy, so don't forget that. So that'd be an interesting 12 seed to look at, as they have who arguably is probably the number one pick coming out for the NBA. Other than that, for me, I feel like, and this is my limited knowledge, Houston's really good on defense. Houston is just a good team that I think will probably have the best shot to come out after Illinois. But it's other than that, a lot of it's chalk to me in this part of the bracket. I'm not really looking at upsets. I don't know. What do you guys think, Luke or Matt?
I really don't have any upsets in this bracket. If I were to pick a team that would make a run, I would probably take Syracuse, who I think was projected one of the last 4 teams in. They have an efficient offense by Jim Boeheim and his son, Buddy Boeheim. They can shoot the three pretty well, so if they can get hot, I could see them potentially making a deep run. However, I don't see them coming out against San Diego State.
Yeah, so much of me wishes that Loyola Chicago was not an 8 seed, because I really wish they wouldn't potentially have to play Illinois in the next round. I don't think that bodes too well for them. And granted, if they were a 7 seed, I think Houston is another extremely tough matchup. When you look at it, this is the bottom right side of the bracket, the Midwest, but Illinois, Houston might be the best 2 seed in this bracket, to be honest with you. I think they were on the verge of being a 1 seed. So even if Loyola Chicago was a 7 seed, I don't think they would have maybe gotten over Houston. It would have taken them to be, one of those Cinderellas again. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about, guys, is do you think the reason we see some of these bigger runs by the 11s and 12s, potentially 13s, is because they don't have to go up against the 1s and 2s until later in the bracket? They get the 4s and the 5s and maybe the second, third round?
Absolutely. If you're an 8-9 matchup, you have probably the toughest draw. You're getting the closest theoretically seeded matchup, so you're going toe-to-toe with somebody that should be on par with how good you are. And then if you win, minus the one time it's happened ever, you're going against one of the best 4 teams in the entire tournament. So, I think it comes down to seeding, and some of those seeds just give you an easier path to make it maybe to a Sweet 16. Whereas if you're the 8-9, you kind of get stuck with a hard matchup to begin with, very even, and then you get probably the first seed.
Yeah, I'm looking at this side of the bracket right now. Jacob, you mentioned Colgate as your favorite name. I would say Morehead State is going to be my favorite name in the bracket. The 14 seed going up against West Virginia, and Bob Huggins is the most underrated college basketball coach in the history of time. He's just been at West Virginia forever. But I think, like you guys said, I think it's pretty chalk from here. I think Tennessee, Oregon State, Oregon State doesn't even intrigue me, but Tennessee doesn't either. So I see Illinois kind of moving on to the Sweet 16 there. Go down. Liberty might be a test for Oklahoma State, but I think Cade Cunningham and the rest of Oklahoma State can maybe do work there. You guys mentioned Syracuse. I think it was you, Matt. Syracuse could make some noise, and they're experienced enough to where if they did go up against a team like West Virginia, I think that they could maybe be a battle for them. Rutgers, their first NCAA tournament appearance since the 90s. I don't think they're going to be anything for Houston if they move on. And Clemson, again, not typically a basketball school. So chalk, I think, would be the ideal term here. But then again, in the past, we've seen so many times where the sides of the brackets where we think are going to be the most consistent end up being the craziest, and the ones where we think are going to be crazy end up being pretty status quo. So, who knows what's going to happen, but let's do a little game here to close out this episode. We just went through the bracket with some of our highlights of the bracket. But let's we all love upsets, right? Who doesn't love an upset in college basketball? Who doesn't love March Madness? We will each pick a 9 through 16 seed, one team at each seeding, and it's going to be a first-round competition. If your team wins the first round, you get that many points. So if your 9 seed wins, you get 9 points. If your 16 seed wins, you get 16 points, and so on. Whoever gets the most points combined out of the first round wins. And let's kick it off.